Okay, guys, I am Topeka Fennell, and thank you guys for tuning into my channel. And today we have David Liebensohn. And in case you guys don't know who he is, he is the Kim Kardashian ruined my life guy that we have seen. And in case you don't know his story, I was fascinated by it. I literally had to reach out and talk to him because I had so many questions about his business and how this could have happened to someone. So, David, if you don't mind giving cliff notes about your story, we will refer them to your website where they can read about it. But could you give us just the cliff note version, and then we get into the questions that we have for you?
Yeah. A lot of people think because it was so wildly successful for her and her family and a lot of other friends, but the emoji business, the Kimoji idea was it was a secondary, like icing on the cake app that we were working on. The original app that she reached out and had Jonathan Chebin reached out to us for was Sensorgram, and it was an app
Mhm.
that you could log in your Instagram credentials and you can automatically remove unwanted comments from your feed from your social media.
Mhm.
So she was a user of our app and she reached out and she wanted to we were on the app store and we had thousands of users.
Mhm.
So she wanted to partner on our existing app.
Okay.
Then so Kimoji was it was a and basically two other ideas that we were already working on that we had Wall Street emojis and sexy emojis. We took those two apps that we were already working on, and since we knew we were partnering with Kim on the Centigram app, we decided, hey, let's pitch Kimoji. We named it, we came up with the idea, we just threw it at her, just thinking, hey, 50-50 chance she was even going to want to mess with it because we were partnering on something so much more important, the
Mhm.
cyberbullying, anti-cyberbullying.
Mhm.
So, and then it kind of turned into Kimoji, and that's what everybody kind of, thought it was all about. But she ultimately used a mistake that my partner had made, bragging to a friend of his about our partnership with her, saying, "Hey, your dream girl wants to partner with us." Just like some completely innocent, private text message. Well,
Mhm.
somebody had sent that to Jonathan Chebin to try to mess our deal up, to get it to Kim, to try to show like we were breaking her privacy or
Mhm.
something.
Okay, so
She,
that's where that came in. Okay.
yep, she ended up using that and her lawyers to threaten to sue us each for 5 million bucks or hand her Kimoji and her ability to do her own comment control project. Then somehow Instagram is using what we created without us getting paid for it, and her involvement and collusion with the ex CEO Instagram, which I have the recordings of her discussing this and everything.
Mhm.
And so somehow that happened, and somehow we didn't get a dime from Kimoji, and she went on to make millions off that, and we just kind of got screwed. And since I didn't have anything to lose, I'm just kind of airing it all out.
Right. So she came to you for a specific deal, right?
Hmm.
With Instagram. You
Hmm.
threw out this idea about Kimoji while you guys were talking about Instagram, right?
Exactly.
And
So
so, mhm.
I was just gonna say, sorry, she didn't even know about Kimoji before. Like we had made the initial agreement on Centigram when we made we had the first phone call. We agreed to discuss in person. Everything was good on Centigram. We agreed 60-40, 60% us, 40% them. They were gonna Chris Jenner said that they were gonna net contracts and they were gonna fund through a family friend the investment. So
Mhm.
everybody had their parts, and Kimoji was just an add-on after the fact. 50-50, we were just going to do 50-50 us, 50-50 her, just
Mhm.
her likeness, our idea, our project, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I ultimately think she just didn't want to mess with us in that, something that had her name on it, 50-50. Even though the original app
Mhm.
wasn't Kimoji, she
Mhm.
just like thought she could pull one over on us and just, bully us.
Into giving it to her basically because she ended
Essentially,
up,
yeah.
well, allegedly she ended up stealing it from you as you say,
Well,
right?
she called, yeah, well,
Or
after our meeting, and everything was good. She even called a week and a half later. She's like, "Hey, everything's good." She just kind of just went over everything again, saying, her mom found funding, family friend, we're going forward with both projects, Instagram and Kimoji. And then at the end of
Mhm.
that conversation, she said, "Oh, by the way, did you guys trademark Kimoji yet?"
Mhm.
And we hadn't trademarked Kimoji yet. We had protect ourselves with everything else. Instagram, we filed a trademark, we filed a provisional patent on the process
Mhm.
that we had
Mhm.
created and everything. So we were using everything that we could as Americans to you know cover our butts and
Protect
protect
yourself.
ourselves.
Mhm.
But the Kimoji trademark was different because that was something that we were using. We didn't think Kimoji was going to be a big deal.
Oh,
Sensogram, the patent, like removing comments that are unwanted on social media, that was the big
it's
deal
huge. Yeah,
to
it's
us.
huge.
That was huge.
Mhm.
Kimoji was like nothing to us. It was like, maybe we'll make, enough money to help fund some cool stuff with this, you know what I mean? And so it just turned into something much bigger, obviously. But
Yeah, obviously, I actually remember when it came out. I actually remember seeing it with the crying face and all these other things that came along with it.
mhm.
So, would you
well,
say
we,
that people? Mhm. Okay.
well, I was just going to finish and say that. So we didn't want to file the trademark for Kimoji. So we explained to her, since it was the new entity that we were creating with her and Kris
Mhm.
Jenner, it was like
Mhm.
we wanted to file a trademark with her name on it and our new entity, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's like a
Mhm.
respect thing. It's like we didn't want to go file that trademark Kimoji under our business
Yeah.
separately when we were literally in talks we were netting contracts. Everything was on a good path with all of us.
Right. So this was a new deal separate from what you initially were talking about. Now, aside from the Kimoji, was there anything ever done with Sensagram and your partnership with that?
We didn't get a chance to. We
No, no.
basically had sent her team had signed our NDA to give her our provisional patent file so they could look at all of our code and all of our information, our process, the file, the application that we put in, to the government to file our patent and everything. And then
Mhm.
so somehow between that, her getting her that information and her team going through that, and then her, just like she says, talking to Kevin Systrom with Instagram, the ex CEO. I
Mhm.
don't know, like since they signed our NDA, she didn't have the right to go discuss our proprietary information with Kevin Systrom of Instagram. So
Mhm.
somehow that discussion of whether or not our app was important to them or not, she had
Mhm.
inside information, and then she decided, oh, you know what? I don't want to mess with Sensogram anymore. I just want Kimoji, and I want the ability to do something comment control related. So in her threat to sue us for 5 million each, she, I never signed it, but she forced us into my partners into signing basically a release for Kimoji, which nobody cared about. If it was going to mean that we did something wrong and we were going to lose, everybody's going to lose something. Because
Yeah.
keep in mind, in the beginning, we didn't know anybody that nothing was done wrong. Like
Mhm.
Dan and
Mhm.
I, the other co-founders, we assumed that our partner had did something wrong that was potentially worth like
Millions
what
of dollars or whatever. Mhm.
So yeah, but once we found out that it was done intentionally, the guy came forward and said, "Hey, uh, your friend Narayan, he actually she asked me to send Jonathan Chebin this information intentionally, and he felt really bad because he knew it actually affected the entire thing. So he came forward and
Mhm.
said that he is the one that directly sent that message to
To
Jonathan,
Jonathan.
Kim's
Mhm.
bestie, that messed the deal up. And once we found that out, we're like, wait a minute. This is so scandalous. So we're just like, layers kind of appeared, the emails. We realized that she was lying about not knowing who Ryan was when she originally
Mhm.
saved the email and his and him and her address book as Ryan. And we have proof of
Mm.
all this. It was just so scandalous. We just didn't realize somebody would do something like that intentionally just to get some intellectual property.
Just to get it right. So with that being said, would you say that if anyone said, okay, well, that didn't matter to you because that was not the initial, what the initial meeting was for? So if someone were to say, okay, well, why should that matter now that they have it? You understand? Why does it matter that they made money, but this wasn't what you guys, initially started talking about? Or did it do something to ruin your company all the way around? Is that what the issue is?
Well, the issue is that fraud was committed for her to get what she wanted. You know what I mean? And uh, trade secret misappropriations with with Kevin Systrom. I guess just
Mm-hmm.
interfering with our patent, the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
committing fraud for the trademark, and
Mm-hmm.
then just the fact that they're I've personally have just never been able to let it go, and I never can
Right.
because they're everywhere. They're unavoidable. So you just even if I try to forget about it, even I love Kanye West, but I hear his music. I hear the song Facts, and like it's really hard for me to hear because it's like he's talking about Kimoji breaking the app store and making 1 million a
Yeah.
minute,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just
I know.
they get more and more powerful in the media, and but there's just so much wrong was done, and like I said, years later we find out that something was done intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
and I just got to the point where I had nothing to lose, so I'm just gonna keep blowing it up.
What year was this? What year did this happen?
It started in 2014, and then it was 15, 16, towards 16, whenever Instagram released the process that we created.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was our first like red flag, like, okay, she was talking to Kevin Systrom. Now all of a sudden, because they never wanted to do anything like that before. They
Mm-hmm.
never wanted to use a filter like that. And
Like that.
then later on, after she talks to Kevin Systrom and our patent was all disrupted and everything, now it's part of the settings right now. If you go into to that filter and for comment control in Instagram right now, that's literally what we created. If somebody were to look up our app and see
Mm-hmm.
like, oh wait, those guys must have got bought out by Instagram, Facebook, because that's
They
exactly what's
didn't.
in the settings. Like, no, we didn't get anything.
It was allegedly
And
stolen.
I don't know if Kim did. I would love for her to come up and and speak up and say, hey, this is what happened. I would love that. But I'm just gonna keep doing
Mm-hmm.
this until you know
To
somebody does
something.
speak up.
Mm-hmm. Now, so that was say 2016,
Yep.
and you did get a lawyer at one point, right?
After the guy, so that in 17 or 18, when the guy Eugene came forward and said that he intentionally sent this screenshot that Narayan had sent to Alice
Mm-hmm.
to Jonathan to disrupt the deal.
Mm-hmm.
um, that's when like I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. And right about the same time, this lawyer came to us. He was like a celebrity chasing lawyer. He offered contingency to take our deal or to take our case, and so we took that. He offered for like a third or something of everything we would have got. But when it's a guy that's semi-retired, even though he may have been a really great attorney at one point, a
Mm-hmm.
guy that's like semi-retired. He's, the kind of guy that he already put our case that he never really did anything for us in his bio on his website. He's
I
one of those kind
Oh, yeah, that you said he
of.
did.
So we just kind of took what we could get. He really never even understood the case. He told me to file a lawsuit. After we had a couple of offers that were kind of a slap in the face because they did
Mm-hmm.
offer us. I have an offer in writing. So, like,
So how
it,
much did they
it
offer you?
did it did get to the point where we were kind of negotiating, but then they were offering us a percentage in bad faith. So they're like, all right, file a lawsuit. We filed a lawsuit, and then all of a sudden, this lawyer, after a lot of pressure and threats from the other side and the press and everything,
Mm-hmm.
he says, "Hey, I could sort this out on the golf course. Why don't you withdraw voluntarily? You could always file later if you withdraw voluntarily, but for now, let's try to go back and negotiate." And it was just none of it really made sense after the fact,
Mm-hmm.
hindsight. And other
Yeah.
lawyers were like, "No, that's not right. Something happened."
So, something happened. Someone got to him, or something happened. So you withdraw. So this happened 2016, 2017, where you filed this lawsuit. Then you withdraw that lawsuit. The
19
20
was lawsuit.
19 was lawsuit. And then
Sorry.
the Kardashians did come to you with a deal, but you didn't feel like it was in good faith.
So the deal was before the lawsuit, and then after the lawsuit, their reply after we withdrew was to threaten me for 400,000 to pay their legal fees,
Mm,
and that kind of just put me in a dark place for a while. And
mm-hmm,
then I don't know how long it would have took me. I don't know if I ever would have put this all out on blast like this, but I had a producer reach out to me from a production company. This was like probably a month and a half ago now, a few weeks
mm-hmm,
before I started my website. They wanted me to tell my story, and so I nobody really ever knew the whole story. They just saw Kimoji this, Kimoji that from the lawsuit.
mm-hmm,
So by the time I got done explaining everything, showing proof and everything, their jaws were on the floor. They were like, "Wow." So, but they couldn't do anything with me on their documentary
mm-hmm.
because it was too much. Like mine would have had to be like a 3-part documentary just on its own.
Just yourself.
So,
Mm-hmm,
but my reaction or the reaction I got from them, it inspired me to put this out there. I was looking at my
mm-hmm.
car. I'm looking around. I'm like, what do I have to lose right now?
Right.
These non-disclosures, these things, like they don't mean anything if you don't have anything to lose. So
It's true.
like they're not going to harm me like physically. Like so, I
Mm-hmm,
mean, well, I've had threats. I've had death threats to my website, so I will put that out there.
mm-hmm,
But I mean,
mm-hmm,
overall, like I'm not scared about the physical harm part. But so I can't lose anything. So I'm putting it on blast. I started a website. I tried to find a website. I thought of something that would be obviously, you know, uh, it would bring people's
Attention to
attention.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So I
Now,
did that. I put it all out there, and then I decided to just go old school and put some signs out there and hope to get people to take pictures of the signs and put it online, social media.
mm-hmm,
That's what
mm-hmm.
happened.
And my question through all of this, David, where, and I know it would bother me too. What you're dealing. I mean, something like that. I was trying to put myself in your shoes to understand, your point of view from where you're coming from and why you're doing this. But my question is, where are your partners? Where are the other guys
There,
that,
that's a
I
good
mean, you're
question.
talking about yourself.
So there is some things going on in the background, and so
Mm-hmm,
as soon as there's like for sure security and a big enough platform, they will come
mm-hmm.
forward. I know for sure Dan, he's my cousin. He fully
Okay.
supports me, but he also, he's recently married. They have assets. He's not wanting to like lose anything. So
Okay.
he's being careful and going with
Yeah.
doing what they say. Basically to keep his
Mm-hmm.
mouth shut, and they won't go after him for 400K.
Yeah. Yeah.
Narayan, I haven't really talked to him much. Dan and him, they've been in contact through like Facebook and stuff, like saying
Mm-hmm.
happy birthday to each other. But
Mm-hmm.
and I know Narayan feels bad for his part, in
Mm-hmm.
this, but and I
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm sure he supports me and he wants to see this all come to a desirable,
Mm-hmm.
you know, resolution
Conclusion.
for all of us. Yeah.
Resolution. Mm-hmm. Now,
So and there's new people coming forward. Like I
that's
can't
what I
say
was just
anything a
saying.
lot about it,
Yeah.
but now that I basically can, it's just my voice isn't loud enough yet. As soon if I was in mainstream media telling people, hey, there's an entity behind me, very large. They'll pay their legal department will pay millions and millions of dollars in legal fees. They'll go straight up against the Kardashian Jenner, clan. They don't care. They'll do
Mm-hmm.
it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get the word out there to let people know that, hey, come forward. Even if you have a non-disclosure, they'll cover that. And like they want this to be, out there, like more than mainstream.
So someone else that did the same thing to someone else.
Um, oh, they've for sure. There's it started with even before us, the Hollywood game, the Kim Kardashian Hollywood game. Somebody else
Mm-hmm.
created that, and there was some shenanigans behind the scenes, just like us, and it turned into legal, bullying, and then
Mm-hmm.
a settlement of some kind. And but they sued Kris Jenner for 10 million for that game, and she made like 200 million. Who knows what they got out of it? Another
Right.
lady. I mean, so there's some things going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on, like, being the mediator between them and this entity that's trying to be careful, because as soon as they have enough people to show this pattern,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some big things happening, but we don't want to take any chances of, like, messing that up before we get
Messing
there.
it up before.
So I'm not
So,
even going to say like what kind of company this is, that has a very,
and,
very well funded legal department.
oh, so you'll have to swing back around when this comes out, right? And tell us about
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
Um,
I'll make rounds. I'll do interviews every day, multiple times a day. At this point,
mhm.
I'm going for it here. There's nothing else
But
for me to
I'm
do
just,
besides work my butt off and make as much as I can and save as much as I can while I'm in my car, and
mhm,
do interviews after interviews after interview after interview.
to get it out there, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought about you when I heard that Ray J, when people have been bringing up Ray J, and he finally had enough,
Hmm.
and had his whole, he blew up the
Yeah.
spot. Now, have you spoken with him, or have you reached out? How was that? How was that
So
done?
I've tried people that actually have had messages with him before where he's opened them,
Mhm,
have tried to
mhm,
reach out on my behalf. But I would put money on the fact that Ray J, after he blew up and pulled their card on live or
mhm,
wherever,
mhm,
he was reached out to by their family attorney, and he was given something and offered something with a gag order and a non-disclosure
mhm.
for him, basically to keep his mouth shut about that forever, and he'll get this, because that's what they do. They either threaten you if they have
Mhm.
something to threaten you with, and
Mhm.
then you either have to defend that and prove yourself, or that's what they have, or they give you something and then they leverage
Right.
that.
To,
Yeah,
yeah, and I noticed that kind of just dropped off. I was tracking
that's
that,
what.
and
There's a fashion law article that where they show, like, all, like, there's like 17, and there's multiple articles. I don't know, there's
mhm,
probably like 50 different cases, all in all, from just, like, could have been just the fact that something was ripped, the design was ripped off, and could have just been a coincidence, all the way to them ripping off that game, to
mhm,
my situation,
your
to
situation, mhm,
the thing with Ray J,
AJ.
the thing with Brandy. Like, I mean, yeah, there's so many
So
things,
many, yeah,
so
yeah,
many, and
yeah.
so my situation is just kind of turned into, people want my platform to ultimately be a voice for other people as well.
They're victims,
So
other victims.
yeah. Hmm.
I think I'm seeing, and as you've just indicated, it's kind of becoming a snowball. I'm kind of seeing this
The newer
snowball.
generation's over it, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well,
who
a lot
are
of
these
people are
people? Like,
over
who
it.
are the Jenners? Like, a lot of people like me, even, like, I'm 44 now, so, like,
Yeah.
even me, like, my daughters were into it, and it was kind of devastating to them after they, kind of, they looked up more, like, to Kylie and
Yeah.
Kendall, but
Mhm.
um but yeah, I mean, but at this point they're all just kind of like phasing out, like, as
Yeah.
far as TV goes, Hulu's like their last
Yeah.
grasp.
I think so. Now, speaking of them, I just have one more other question. So, I'm sure you've seen that Kim is wanting to do Sky Partners, where she takes other small businesses and they invest in other small businesses. And I thought about you because I said, anyone from the things that we talked about, you and I've talked about, and that we've seen, um, if you give your ideas to the Kardashians with Sky Partners and any other venture where you're basically turning over and handing over all of your business, your concepts, your ideas, your intellectual property, all of these things. What is your opinion about her potential venture in Sky Partners and what that entails for other small businesses.
I mean, I think between that and her, her attempts at getting her law degree and passing the bar, I think she's trying to get a license to commit fraud for the rest of her life.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
scary. In my situation, people think I just signed stuff over and trusted them, but we actually didn't. We were reluctant. We really were reluctant, and we've had
yeah,
some people around us in our inner circle tell us, hey, watch yourselves. So that's why I have an email with Chris Jenner worrying about getting contracts, and her saying we will net contracts, and so like we really were careful. And the only reason, she sold it on us, like she sold it to us, like so.
mhm.
If you listen to the recording that's out there, then
I
you
did.
could you can hear like she's like selling the fact that she wants to do something great, and she wants to use our logo Instagram for the foundation and start an anti-cyberbullying foundation. So we're like, hey, Kim Kardashian and their family, they all want to get behind this. They want to do something positive. We're going to do something great that's going to help people and make money. So they
Yeah.
sold it to us. It's not like we just handed them something and trusted their family of socialites to just like do great stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering about that when I first heard your story. I said, how were they that manipulative that these people handed their company over? What happened? And then I started, trying to put the pieces together because it did sound like that in the beginning. It's like, oh, well, they gave us this company, or that was what the idea, the concept people were getting from it all.
So a lot of the nutshell versions, it is kind of, we did have to kind of hand over, it wasn't cleanly handed over. I never signed. The
Mhm,
attorneys did a piss poor job of like finishing the documents and making sure everything was right. And it was
mhm.
sloppy. They sent me a letter saying that they didn't make any money off Kimoji,
Yeah,
that they lost $244,000 to
yeah.
$244,000, and it makes
Mhm.
no sense when there's like all this media about how much money they made, and
The
first of all, like, why are you
millions
even
of
sending me this email
mhm.
telling me this information anyways?
That was a play on the. I'm sure you probably have learned now that was a play on accounting. In regards to
Oh, absolutely. That's my reply to
that.
them in the email
Yeah,
was that's
mhm.
like it doesn't take a genius to know you're doing that for tax reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a background in accounting, and I'm like, no,
You
you're
can
gonna
show
always
something's
do
not a profit and you can still
this.
use it for your benefit.
Exactly, exactly. So so ultimately, I felt really bad, but I'm glad that you have now come into this place and space where you are fighting. Where you have taken your power back. I think in the sense of speaking out as opposed to seeing this and being hurt by it, and then having to be forced to be quiet about it. And I think that me personally and a lot of the people are behind you and
I appreciate
support
that.
you. And I totally support you in what you're doing. But before we go, what do you want to see? What do you want? What does David want to happen now that he's spoken out about this? And what will be your end goal? And what would you like to say to Kim?
And I've said this before. I just want an explanation. Like, why did it have to go this way? Like, why couldn't you just explain what's going on? Hey, I want this. You guys can take that. We'll give you this for
Mhm,
that. Let's go our own
mhm.
ways.
Yes.
Easily done. Didn't have to be like this. And what I want
Mhm,
is just what's fair.
mhm,
I don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. I just want what's fair for myself and the other co-founders.
mhm,
And I would love for an explanation and for them to be held accountable. A public
mhm.
explanation and like apology. Like, here you go. This is what you deserve. I'm doing the right thing now. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm done with all this fraud crap. That would be amazing. But
They probably to learn how to do it better.
yeah.
How to do it better. Well, David, I admire your courage to go up against the family that most people will still be afraid of, regardless of the cease and desist letters, the threats, the everything else that they've thrown at you. You're still here,
Thank
and
you. Yeah.
you're still using your voice. And thank you for coming on my platform. And I will do all I can to get your word out on my platform and with what I'm able to do. So
Thank you.
I
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
you, David, so much.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you guys for watching. And if you want to support David, please go to www.kimkardashianruinedmylife.com. Buy a t-shirt. I've ordered my shirt.
Thank, thank you. Thank you so much.
Buy a t-shirt and we will see you guys later.
Thank you.